Now, the fire may have destroyed the building, but it didn't destroy the business. Owners say they plan to stay open and they won't be too hard to find. In fact, they're going to be right next door. Well, Shaylee, people are trying to cope with this closure any way that they can. And as you can see, there are people turning around on the southbound bridge and driving north, driving the wrong way on this road, all in an attempt to get onto the northbound side of the Twin Bridges. Well, Dan, you think so from the look of the house right now, but just before we came on the air with this live shot, those flames were sparking back up, and so this is still a very active scene and a very active fire. As you can see behind me, the smoke is still billowing out of the house, and crews are still working to make sure that this is completely under control. Now, the Guns lead the overall series 6-5, but the hoses are coming out, and they're looking for a fight. When you see the cops cycling for survivors support truck rolling into town, you get one picture. These 5 officers who lost their lives in the line of duty in this past year. But as you get closer, you can read some of the personalized messages about these officers, and you get a different picture entirely. Well, Dan, currently there are still deputies out here photographing the scene, documenting, taking evidence, and investigating just what happened inside this house around 11 o'clock last night. That's when crews got the call to come out here. When our crew arrived, we learned from Sheriff Wilder that one person was confirmed dead and one person was being detained by Warwick County Sheriff deputies. We're told that approximately 4,000 barrels could have been impacted by this collapse. The rick house itself holds upwards of 20,000 barrels, and you can see just the damage that it's caused at this point. Barrels strewn everywhere, siding coming down off of the rick house, and you can see the wooden beams as well, and the smell, the pungent smell of bourbon all throughout the air down here outside of the OZ Tyler facility. For 2 days, campers waited in line to hear these 3 words.
Gate is ready.
But Todd Schmidt didn't mind one bit.
I'm a school teacher, so it's like the end of my year. I can't wait to get out here and unwind and hang out and pick a little music and meet friends, and it's just a good time.
Schmidt traveled from New Jersey and has for the past 5 years. He says there's something special in the air when Romp rolls around.
It's just not only is the professionals, but the people that are just want to pick and jam and have a good time, and they always seem to find a group of people that they can pick with.
In a little while. Is that what he said?
Camaraderie with all the different people from all over the country to even people that are local. You know, a lot of people come every year, and I've met them and made friendships with them, and that's a big aspect of the whole thing that makes it so enjoyable.
Glenn Burns had plenty of time to make friends. He arrived early Monday morning so he could be second in line.
Last year I was camped next to a fellow from California. Came all the way from California to go to this. Met people from New Jersey last night. Met, Illinois, Indiana, South Valdosta, Georgia. That's, it's a long way to come to a music festival.
They don't always get out east where I'm at, We're more Springsteen, Bon Jovi where we live, but this is a chance to see some of the guys that I listen to all the time.
Yeah, there's something in the air, and it's bringing people together. In Owensboro, Jim Stratman, 14 News. Crews say they got the call around 5:30 this morning for a structure fire on East Poplar, and when they arrived, they say that they saw flames shooting out of the top of the building and smoke billowing out of the windows.
When we got here, the doors were, front and back doors were open, a large amount of fire coming out of the back of the house, and a large amount of thick black charged smoke coming out of the front of the house. So that told us right there that, there's a ventilation problem. We got the doors shut off, got a crew in the back door, and started trying to conduct primary search and extinguish the majority of the fire.
Boonville Fire Chief Stephen Byers said that his department and a crew from Chandler began working their way through the house from back to front, but had to retreat and take up defensive positions due to the heat of the fire, a torched stairwell, and a roof that was beginning to collapse.
We do have some major weakening on the structure. The walls are leaning, roof is partially collapsed in the center, so we're trying to keep our safe distances away from the structure to maintain our safety. The house is cut up really bad. A lot of areas that we're not able to access from the outside, so it's taking longer to get water onto those areas.
Terry McBride owns the home, but it's his daughter who lives there. McBride says when he drove up to the house this morning, the gravity of what was happening began to set in.
Unbelievable. I was just
couldn't believe that it was burning and freaking out because I didn't know if she was still here or if she was at work. A lot of hard work gone up in flames.
Officials did confirm that there were no injuries. Nobody was inside the house when the fire broke out. Crews say right now there's no word on what started this fire. Reporting in Boonville, Jim Stratman, 14 News. Good morning, Dan and Shaylee. I'd like to introduce everybody to Daniel Hopper. He's an officer with the Mount Carmel Police Department, entering his 8th fight at Guns N' Hoses. He's 5-2 and looking to avenge a loss from 3 years ago. But this isn't a story about wins and losses. This is a story about Lila.
I have her name tattooed on my ribs, and after the fight, I'm pointing to that, showing that that's the reason that I do this.
9 years ago, Daniel Hopper wasn't a fighter. He was an officer and a first-time father.
So in 2010, my daughter Lila was born. She was born with spina bifida, and she needed to be born in Louisville, Kentucky, because she would have to have multiple surgeries immediately after birth.
The Hoppers received aid from charities while Lila was in the hospital. Many of them supported by 911 Gives Hope.
I'm going down the list. I'm like, yep, they helped me out, they helped me out, they helped me out. So I decided that I wanted to do this as a way of saying thank you to those different charities.
That led to fight number 1.
2011 was my first fight. I fought Dylan Woods, who's a fireman from here in Mount Carmel. I won that fight.
For 2 years, Daniel fought to say thank you. But in 2013, that reason changed. Lila had passed away.
I was trying to be convinced not to fight, and I told him I had to. To me, this is therapy. She would be down there with me, and she would just laugh and giggle every time I would punch the bag. When I get in the zone, I grunt, and the more I grunt, the more she would laugh. I was very public and dedicated that fight to Lila. You know, nobody wants to lose, but if you do, you know, it's for a great cause. And I knew I wasn't going to lose that fight. I honestly didn't remember the fight until I went back and watched it. The emotions just took over. As soon as the fight was over, I knew that I'd won. And in the video, you can see me, I walk to the corner, I give Lila a fist bump, and I just say, we did it.
Now 6 years after Lila passed away, Daniel continues to fight. He fights to say thank you for the support he received. He fights for the families and the children who benefit from 911 Gives Hope. And he fights to remember. Daniel will be looking for win number 6 at Saturday night's event. He says his wife and his second daughter, Bria, will be there rooting him on. Dan? Fresh on the heels of announcing his bid for re-election, Governor Eric Holcomb made a stop inside the Pie Pan here on Evansville's north side to speak with voters about what he sees as the future of the Hoosier State.
We're on the right course. We're moving in the right direction. The trajectory is going up, and I want to see more people realize that American dream right here in Indiana. We're doing it the Indiana way.
The governor made it clear before meeting with supporters that his goal is still, quote, putting people first, end quote, with the aim of finishing I-69, putting more Hoosiers to work, and continuing to help inmates become productive members of society once they get out of prison.
I want it to be thousands more because they go from being a have-not to a have, and they're contributing to our state's future. This is a small world. We are on a roll right now, and our momentum just continues to accelerate.
It wasn't all smiles, though. The governor took quite a bit of time to speak with protesters who showed up to voice their concerns about funding for schools and teachers. The governor also said that he wasn't looking to make news today. He reaffirmed his stance that Lieutenant Governor Suzanne Crouch will be his running mate during this next election. Reporting in Evansville, Jim Stratman, 14 News.